Lots of people still think collecting ancient coins is expensive. They imagine it's all about things like these amazing museum grade 4 or even 5-figure coins. But it doesn't have to be like that. Today, I'm going to prove that you can assemble a real ancient coin collection, real pieces of history, no replicas, no corroded junk, an entire start of a collection for less than $100. Actually, I want to turn this into a challenge. Can you, watching this video, build your own $99 ancient coin collection, make a video response to this video, and post it on YouTube? I'll make sure to look at them and comment on your answers. And apart from showing you my own $99 collection, let me give you in this video some practical tips for collecting ancient coins on a tight budget. Let's explore here exactly what is the sweet spot between quality and price. Let's look at some of the traps people fall for when they can't afford much but still want to collect, and explain how to check online what ancient coins are actually selling for right now. What's the current market average? So here are the 3 rules for this challenge. First, the collection has to include at least 2 coins. One $99 coin would be too easy. There are lots of great coins out there for 99 bucks. And we want to be as budget friendly as possible. Second, the prices have to reflect today's market. So if you bought a coin over 2 years ago, you must adjust the price for inflation. And third, the coins have to come from reputable dealers who offer guarantees of authenticity. No eBay, no risky, unprotected sellers, no platforms where a beginner would be exposed to fakes without any guarantees. This challenge is, after all about bringing this hobby to everyone. So let's consider a situation where you need to pay a little bit more and stay in the safe part of the market. I mean, just so be it. At the very beginning, it's perfectly valid to pay a premium for the knowledge and the reputation of the person you are buying the coins from. If you don't want to make an entire video response to this episode, it's okay. I'm also happy with reading about the sets you come up with in the comment section of this video. But if you can make a video response, it would be such a cool way to connect with my audience. Alright, what kinds of tips could I give you to find this sweet spot of prices? Now, you see, even though this is a budget challenge, the goal should still be to buy the best coin you can afford. If you go straight to the absolute bottom end of the market, you often find coins that are like completely worn, badly corroded, overcleaned, broken with some nasty kind of problem, or they're just so visually unappealing that even if they are perfectly authentic, they don't really make you excited to collect. And that matters a lot in the very beginning, because your first ancient coin should make you want to learn and collect more. I know there's much more to these coins than simply visual appeal and condition, but I think a little wow effect on your first coins helps a lot to motivate you. Here's a little interesting example of that. This is a little Numus of Emperor Leo I. He ruled over the Eastern Roman Empire around the time the West was on its final collapse. So despite the humble look of this coin, this is actually a pretty cool coin historically. But as an absolute beginner, you probably wouldn't have guessed it based simply on its looks. So yeah, your first coins should not make you wonder why you bought a tiny little brown lump of metal. This one happens to be a pretty cool lump of metal, but I wouldn't add a coin like this one to the list. If you want to add something like this to your list, I would actually be very curious as to why. Alright, grades. Which grade should you aim for? I think the sweet spot with ancients tends to be somewhere between Fine Plus and VF. Coins tend to be fairly reasonably priced along these grades. Sadly, when we go to VF Plus and let alone EF or anything above this, the price just goes up a lot. However, at this Fine Plus VF, the coins, they still have enough detail to be enjoyable, and they have enough visual information, resolution, that they are easy to study and you don't need to guess what you're seeing. It's all still very clear. Just be careful not to fall on the trap of collecting something simply because it is good value. if you, let's say you love a famous emperor or like a specific civilization or a type of coin that is simply more popular or more expensive, and that is the only thing you really want to collect, that is completely fine. It just means that you will have to save up to buy them, or you will need to make concessions on the grade. So here, for example, on your screen, you're seeing one of such cases. This is a denarius of Emperor Galba. He reigned for just 7 months. He's part of the 12 Caesars set, a very popular set with Roman imperial collectors. So that's a case of a coin where I could either suck it up, save for half a year and buy a denarius of him in VF, or just accept a denarius of him in this lower grade, probably like a good plus, which is what I did. Perfectly valid coin, but not what I would personally add to the set because it doesn't have that wow factor. And this leads us to one of the most interesting things about this challenge. It presents you with an opportunity to explore the parts of ancient history that most people often ignore. Instead of chasing the same famous emperors and famous types everyone already knows, you can use this limited budget as an invitation to discover these lesser known but still fascinating historical characters. You can also look for coins made at different mints, different civilizations from the most common ones, always Greek, always Roman. So it's an invitation to explore history with the added benefit that you can buy some pretty great looking coins because you don't have to fight with half of all of the other collectors out there and pay the premium that these famous coins command. Here's a nice example of one of these coins. This one could perfectly have made it to the list. This is a brass coin of Mithridates VI, major enemy of the Romans in the late Republican period. This guy issued his fair share of big and expensive silver and gold coins, but hey, he also made mountains of these gorgeous fractional coins, like this one featuring on the obverse this lovely portrait of the god Dionysus, the god of wine. Okay, we're 7 minutes in already, so you must be curious with what my set looks like. I've decided to go pretty broad chronologically. What we have here is a selection of 3 coins that spawns 1,500 years of history, with the oldest coin being from the early 2nd century BC and the newest being from the early 14th century AD. This is also a good show of how you don't need to be restricted to just bronze, as each coin here is made out of a different metal. We've got some Roman silver, well, low-grade silver, but still silver, 1 Hellenistic Greek bronze, and 1 Bilan, silver-copper mix with the majority of it being copper from the medieval period. Notice how none of these coins is absolutely pristine, but here we can see how staying in this fine plus to VF range still gets you some pretty great looking coins. Visually, the entirety of the designs can be seen, they can be understood fully. You can, well, basically get a catalog for these types of coins and make a full attribution of them, no problem. So yeah, you don't have to be absolutely crazy about only collecting coins in MS. VF, it's pretty good already. So let's look at them in detail, and to start, I decided to splurge a little bit. I've spent half of my entire budget on the first coin because, well, the portrait in this coin is simply excellent. It's amazing to think that you can still find examples in this condition for like $50, especially if you know how to be patient and wait for a good offer. This is a Roman Antoninianus of Emperor Decius, Trajan Decius. Maybe you haven't heard of him. His reign was fairly short, from 249 to 251. This man was one of the many short-lived emperors from the very turbulent crisis of the 3rd century AD. This was a very bad time to be an emperor. He himself here, Decius, was the first emperor to die in battle against a barbarian army. And as we can see, we have this fantastic portrait of the emperor here on the obverse. Very realistic. We can see he was this middle-aged man already. The skin on his cheek and the neck areas are starting to sag slightly, which just adds more to the realism of this portrait. As for condition, there is a little bit of wear that is fusing this area between the radiate crown on his head, his ear, and parts of his hair. So that makes the final image lose a little bit of resolution here, but it is still a fantastic looking coin, perfectly attributable to, if you get a catalog of Roman imperial coins, you can definitely find this coin within the overall scope of Roman coinage. It has enough information for you to make an attribution. And I mean, everything is in here. We can even read the legends fully. It reads Imperator Gaius Messius Quintus Traianus Decius Augustus. Heading to the reverse, we have the image of the two Pannonias personified, the two provinces of Pannonia Superior and Inferior. So it's like a clear reference to the region and the troops stationed in the province that helped Decius rise to power. So here we can see sort of like that by placing the Pannonias on his coins, Decius was advertising the loyalty of the Nubian provinces and the legions and making like a little nudge to the troops that made him emperor. Notice also like a lovely patina in this piece as well. The silver in these 3rd century coins isn't as good as in previous centuries. This coin shouldn't have more than 40% silver in it, probably less, but it still has the appearance of good quality silver. And if you leave silver alone in a cabinet for enough time, it starts developing all kinds of interesting colors like what you see here. Another one of the fun things about picking up any ancient coin basically, but a coin like this one, are the little historical rabbit holes you can go in. For example, a coin like this doesn't just introduce you to Decius himself. It opens these doors to, in this case, for like a whole little cast of characters around him. Once you start looking into his reign and his coin, you quickly run into his wife, Herenia Etruscula, his sons, Herenius Etruscus and Hostilian, and they also had coins struck in their names. So this one coin here, very affordable, can become a starting point for understanding not just one emperor, but the whole concept of imperial families, how succession changed during the Roman period, and basically every individual coin can on itself lead you to an entire new collection. Here, let me go over another Roman coin in case you wouldn't want to spend like half your budget on a single coin. This is yet another Antoninianus, this time of Trebonianus Gallus, the successor of Decius. This piece is certainly in lesser grade. Well, actually, grade-wise alone, preservation grade, it's still a VF. It's just that this coin has a few issues that the previous one didn't. Ancient coins are not just about like how much wear the coin has. As you can see here, its surface isn't as sharp. We can see there's a certain degree of surface corrosion all over the surface. That happens. In this case, it's not too much. The coin is still pleasing to look at. But we can see, for example, that some of the coppery appearance of the alloy, it's starting to poke through the silver in this example. We can see that the upper layer of fine silver in this piece has been stripped away, revealing some of the copper inside this low-grade silver alloy. In this condition, probably this would be a coin around the ballpark of $40 right now. This particular coin works well to help us illustrate how the quality of the portraits, the art on the portraits, varied a lot in ancient coins. While the previous coin was highly realistic, this one has, as you can see, like a more generic aspect to it. This portrait looks a bit more schematic than actually like trying to show individualized features of the emperor. Recognizing what is a good style portrait and what is a more mediocre one is mostly a matter of exposure, really. It's getting used to the types, looking at many examples and developing an eye for quality in art. There's really no way around it. But you shouldn't really worry too much about this in the very beginning, because it's one of these things that come with time. You will get used to seeing quality in coins as you look at, well, thousands of coins. There's no way around it. And as we head to the reverse, we have a clear example of the nice little surprises that these coins can give us. We have this super interesting, super unique image of Juno Martialis. Now, Juno, is this fairly benign goddess. She's associated with like family, the protection of the household. And here she's put into like a military context. The title Martialis connects her with war. It comes from Marti, Mars, the god of war, which feels almost like paradoxical. I mean, isn't this awesome? For such an affordable price, you can have a coin which features basically a mystery in coin form that prompts you to investigate what is going on here. But let's keep going. Let's go to Greek coins. Now, compared with Roman coins on average, Greek coins can feel a bit more intimidating at first because on average they tend to be more expensive. There are simply far more Roman coins available on the market, and Greek silver is generally pricier. But that absolutely shouldn't discourage you from collecting Greek coins if that's what interests you. And if you are okay with bronze, like you're really spoiled for choice in bronzes here. There's a ton of stuff. The Greek world was highly monetized and highly urbanized, so lots of cities needed their own small bronze coinage for everyday local circulation, especially in the classical and Hellenistic periods. That has left us with an absurd number of bronze varieties to collect. I mean, there's really a variety on everything. Different styles, denominations, kingdoms, cities. You can find portraits of kings, gods, animals, local designs. It is such a wonderful and underappreciated niche. And just because these coins are not made out of precious metals does not make them any less fascinating, as they too can lead you down this historical rabbit hole. I'm going to show you a couple of pieces, but this is the one I picked up for the set. It's worth, once again, between $30 and $45 in this grade. This is a coin of the Seleucid Empire. This coin was issued between 185 and 175 BC by Seleucus IV. Here, we don't have the image of a king. We have a god, the god Apollo. Bronzes were normally issued with deities rather than the image of the king. His portrait was normally reserved for precious metals. And, well, here's another example of how we don't have to be crazy about grade. This is a fine, maybe fine plus, so a fairly humble coin, but it's all still very easy to see and to appreciate. I mean, you can see the whole portrait of Apollo, pretty easy to see all of the details on his face, his eyes, even his lips are quite well sculpted. He has his long hair tied in this kind of bun behind his head, and he wears a laurel crown. This coin is quite unique. We have these curious little dimples around the rims, which make the coin look like a bottle cap. And it's actually a bit of a mystery as to why these dimples were added to these coins. It could be simple decoration. Sometimes the most obvious solution is the right one. It could be to prevent clipping, which I actually don't think that's the case because this coin doesn't have any precious metals in it, so there's no point in clipping this coin. It could, however, I think this one is likely, it could be an anti-counterfeiting technique, because these bronze coins were actually highly fiduciary in nature. They were used to serve as small change to the silver denominations, but their actual intrinsic value, the metal, was almost nothing compared to their face value dictated by law. So there might have been an incentive to fake these denominations. Therefore, adding these dimples to the ridges would make it much more expensive, complicated, and just costly for any forgers to replicate this coin. Because as you can see, if we look at it in more detail, it's not like these proto-ridges we have here. It's not like they were simple cuts on the edge of the coin. No, these are cast into the flan. So the manufacture process of this coin was actually surprisingly complex and costly to achieve this kind of effect. It's one of these fascinating little mysteries that you often find with ancient coins. And on the reverse, sadly the reverse is a little bit worn, so I'll add a drawing on the screen in order for us to understand the image a bit better. We have Apollo once again, but now it's a full body image of him. Apollo was the patron god of the Seleucids. That's why we see it so often on their coins. So he's standing, leaning over a tripod, another one of his symbols, and he holds an arrow, as out of the many things he represented, out of the many things he was a patron god of, one of them was archery. To the left and right of him, we have some legends proclaiming the king's name. It reads Basileus Seleukos, or of King Seleucus. And despite the relatively low importance of these coins in the grand scheme of the economy, there was a lot of thought put into what was going to be shown in pocket change. If we for a moment do a transition to this coin, Now, what we have here is a huge silver tetradrachma of Seleucus II, so this one predates our little bronze. You will notice here on the reverse that it is the exact same image. Even the position of the legends is the same. Yes, the engravers could afford more detail on the tetradrachma. Apollo here, I mean, look at it, it's very finely sculpted. The Seleucids were very talented coin engravers. Their coins have for me, some of the best representations of musculature and the overall human figure. But the point is that this shows that, yes, we're not going to be able to afford like a 500, 800 or more silver tetradrachma. These coins are always super hot on the market. But there is a connection between these larger, fancier coins and our humble little coins of everyday life. I've seen a number of people be dismissive of lower denominations, claiming they were not an important part of everyday life. But this is just incorrect. People paid attention to these coins and lots of attention was given to the designs. Now here's another example of these $30 to $45 Greeks. And this one was issued under no other than Alexander the Great. As he conquered his vast empire, he imposed his own monetary standard over his new subjects. It was an entire assembly of like a very complex system of gold and silver denominations, but it also included smaller bronze pieces. There are three of them, a chalkos, a dichalkos, and a tetrachalkos. So 1/8, 1/4, and 1/2 of what would be the silver oboe. All of these denominations are common. If you aren't picky with condition or a particularly good style, they also tend to be fairly reasonably priced. And I mean, it's Alexander the Great. How much more of a historical relevant character do you want for that little money? So what we have here is dichalkos, so the middle denomination. And as we can see here on the obverse, we have the phalangite's shield. Imagine having your city be taken by Alexander. You saw his armies of phalangitai marching, all in close order, with their shields next to them. And a few months later, your local mint starts making coins in the shape of these very same shields. These coins it's so fascinating. They're even a little bit concave, which I think was done on purpose to emulate the shape of the shields, which is just so creative. And going to the reverse, keeping up with this militaristic theme, we have a Macedonian helmet. For every phalangite you saw with his shield, he would also have worn a helmet. So here's another very easily recognizable symbol of military power that you could put on your coin and absolutely everyone would be able to recognize, even if they were illiterate. I love the little detail on the crest on top of the helmet, which made the wearer a little bit taller and maybe a little bit more menacing. We tend to think of shields as like the ultimate tool to protect yourself on the battlefield, but actually helmets were the most important piece of kit. If you were one of the poorest soldiers in an ancient army, think about these like very humble drafted peasants who couldn't afford any equipment and had to fight like as skirmishers launching javelins or stones with a sling. Even these guys, the very first piece of equipment they would procure as soon as they received their first payments or they managed to get a hold of some loot would be a helmet before a shield. The number of skeletons we find from ancient battlefields that have like nasty head wounds show that it was the primary target for any attack. I mean, it makes sense. If you stab someone, they could continue fighting until they bleed out, so they were still a danger. But hit them in the head, game over. So yes, helmets were the most important piece of kit, and it's understandable they show up on coins. Continuing with the reverse here, if you could also read, apart from the helmet, we also have these small abbreviations to the left and the right of the helmet, spelling the authority who issued this coin. Alexandros Basileus, of King Alexander. I mean, $30 to $40 for such an artifact. It's unbeatable. Alright, we have a Greek and a Roman coin in our collection. We have some money left in our $99 budget. Assuming we spent $40 on the Roman and $40 on the Greek, we're left with $19, which isn't really much nowadays, unfortunately, but we can still play around with this. I could maybe get another Roman coin for this money, maybe a very late Roman bronze, like a 5th century piece, could be affordable in this niche. Maybe a Byzantine coin could also fit into this. The early Byzantine Empire issued lots of fractional bronzes, which tend to be quite fun, quite collectible, and it's still an underappreciated and underpriced niche. They get a bad reputation for being less artistically, well, talented compared to earlier Roman coins, but I've decided to go a different path to show you there's more out there compared to just the typical Roman and Greek path that most people go to. So for this last piece, I've picked a medieval coin. Medieval numismatics, I feel like it's a bit more complicated. It's more localized in nature. Normally you have to look at authors of a certain country in order to look for the medieval coins of that era, while ancient coinage, since it predates any idea of our modern national states, it has a more international appeal to it. But I think this is actually a great opportunity for you to explore your origins. I mean, we weren't born out of a rock. Myself and you watching this video, we come from some long lineage of people who came from a certain place, a certain region, and this is a great chance to find a collecting niche that has a much stronger link to your past, and it can give a very personal appeal to this collection, like coins that circulated in the area where your forefathers come from. And that's exactly what I did here. What you have here is a dinheiro. This is a Portuguese coin, issued between 1273 and 1325 by Diniz I of Portugal. The price for medieval coins can vary dramatically. There's like a sea of varieties out there, but most medieval states, especially towards like the late Middle Ages, they issued something like this that you have here, like a penny-like coin of Bilen. Bilen is this alloy of like mostly copper and a little bit of silver, like very little silver. This coin has like 8% silver in it. These coins were made in very large numbers in order to monetize society thoroughly. So they tend to be relatively common and affordable, especially if you're not like super demanding with grade. And as we can see here, very different from anything made by the Romans or the Greeks. Incredibly thin flange, like it's razor thin. These are made by cold cutting sheets of metal instead of casting the flange like they did in the ancient world. And the appearance of the design is also like incredibly unique. The dies were also very different looking. They were made in a different way. The entire artistic style of medieval coins tends to be different. So I'll have to add the drawings here to help you make sense of what you're seeing, because no one understands what's going on with a medieval coin the first time they have one in front of them. So let's make sense of this coin. Here on the obverse we have at the center, large cross, showing this was a deeply Christian country. Then it has like a border of little beads around the cross. And at the outer area, the abbreviated form of his regnal name, Diniz Rex Portugal, or Diniz, King of Portugal. Pretty straightforward. And heading over to the reverse, this one I enjoy quite a lot because you can see that early in Portuguese history, in the case of this coin, we can already see some symbols that still show up in the modern flag of Portugal. In particular, these 5 little shields with dots in them that we can see here organized in the shape of yet another cross. As for the legends, divided in 4 parts, we can read Algarve, or Algarve, a region in southern Portugal that at this time was considered like a separate kingdom, but still part of the overall Portuguese crown. So in reality, the legends here are more like a continuation of the obverse, as in Diniz, King of Portugal, and of the Algarve. Really interesting little coin. I should make more medieval content in the future. Okay, we've got our little collection here. 3 nice little pieces covering over 1,000 years of history, which should cost you less than $100. Okay, so now you have my set, and I'll be on the lookout for your video responses to this video. But first, I just gave you an example of a $99 ancient coin set with the knowledge on the market that I have, but I haven't actually taught you how to find the current price of ancient coins, right? Don't worry, I have the solution for this. I've already made a video tutorial in which I teach you how to do just that. The link to it should be popping up on your screen now. There will also be a link to it in the video description for the tutorial. So have a look at it, learn how to find the price for ancient coins, assemble your own collection, film it, and post it here to YouTube. All right, happy collecting, and I'll see you soon.